Hi, Sophie. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. I know it's been something in the pipeline for quite a few weeks now, but we've managed to pin you down.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
No worries. You only work, how many hours a week is it, like officially?
Oh, well, I work Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons, so like 4 hours on a Tuesday and 4 hours on Wednesday. However, there is a disclaimer on that. We're on a massive momentum push with my company at the moment. So I've got a 6-month-old. I know you're about to have another baby as well. So he's my second son. And really for the 9 months I was pregnant, and then for the last 6 months, I've kind of just been keeping the company where it's pretty steady, pretty stable. It's been growing, but at a fairly steady rate. And we've had a family meeting and decided that we're really ready to push for the next level. So we're ready to push up to a 7-figure run rate in the next 3 months. So I am now working. My husband's the head of marketing, and he's got me working a little more for us to have that. But I always have Mondays and Fridays off every week.
Brilliant. And it's quite astonishing to, like you said, you're a seven-figure company, and you're able to do the 4 hours, 4 hours per day across 2 days. So I'm sure many people can only dream of being able to do that. I mean, I certainly do. I think the more I do my businesses, the more hours I'm working, I'd love to be able to reduce it. So there's a lot of people out there who, whether they're in property, in business, will take a lot from this and understand how you can outsource and systemize their company in order to be able to free up their time. Because ultimately, a lot of people start businesses, don't they? So they do have the freedom, or they do have a lot of time. But I think some people get stuck in a way where time slips away.
Yeah, and I think when I started my business, when I had my first son, George, 4 years ago, so I actually worked at Property Investors Network. So I'm sure, I know that you're familiar with the company. I'm sure some of your listeners, if you're in property, you might go to PIN meetings. They're all over the country. That wasn't a plug for it, but if you haven't been to one yet, then check them out, because it's a great place to network, some great information at those meetings. And I was the head of sales there, in a corporate role. I really enjoyed the company. It's really good opportunities as far as earning was concerned, but I was still living my life on someone else's terms, essentially. I had to be in at a certain time. I had to be working for a certain amount of hours. I had to take X amount of days holidays. My earnings were great, but there was a cap on my earnings. I was never going to be able to become a multimillionaire or billionaire or whatever working for somebody else. And I saw having my son George as an opportunity to really start to work towards this life of financial freedom, to work towards this life of time freedom, personal freedom, the dream. I'm going to live life on my terms. And the reality of entrepreneurism is entirely different. Like if you're there, maybe you're working and you're building a business on the side, or you've managed to get enough income from your side hustle to be able to run it full time. I found that the business, instead of me running the business, was running me really, really quickly. And for me, something had to change, because I was sacrificing too much time with my family. And also I just wasn't reaching my personal potential. I was getting really tired, partly because I was a new mom, but also because I was working loads of hours in the business. I was getting really frustrated because the business hit a ceiling pretty early on. I couldn't break through financially, time-wise, because I just needed additional resources. So I was really forced to start looking outside the box at how I could grow the business in less hours, driven really by revenue, because I wanted to be earning the same amount of money that I'd been earning before I went on maternity leave. And that's what opened my world up to outsourcing to virtual assistants, systemizing, automating, and making sure now when I work in my business, the return on investments of the time that I put in the business, I have to make sure that it's worth me doing it. And I always look at it, and I look at my tasks every day. And this is a great starting point, Dan. This is something that you could do. I look at my list of tasks that I do, and they've got to be moving me towards one of my goals. So I've got health goals, I've got wealth goals, I've got family goals. So if how I'm spending my time isn't moving me towards my goals, I'll either eliminate it entirely, just won't do it. If it is moving me towards my goals, but someone else can do it, I'll outsource it, or I'll automate it. Or if it's literally something only I can do, then those are the tasks that I'll do. And you have to do it frequently, because it's ever evolving. Like I've just gone through that process now, and I've realized I'm doing things that actually I could have somebody else do. And those 4 hours, 2 days a week, those 8 hours if I use them doing something else, it would be significantly more valuable. And that activity is going to get us to about 7-figure run rate in the next 3 months. Whereas if I kept doing what I'm doing now, I'll be kind of staying in the same place. So it's really important to self-assess all the time how you're using your time. Otherwise you lose your motivation and your drive, in my experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great overview, to be honest. And like you say, I mean, I've touched on some other episodes. My time is becoming increasingly scarce, running the businesses, and it's something that we are looking at. It is something that I know other people are using, and obviously all they have to say about it is good things. So your company, Resource Worldwide, so global recruitment company, you've touched on it. So utilizing virtual assistants, VAs. Can you talk us a bit about that? Because I'm sure there'll be a few people who may be a bit hesitant or reluctant, obviously using virtual assistants from overseas, as opposed to potentially hiring staff in the UK. Now, obviously, there are many benefits regarding financial benefits, but just from someone who's in the business all the time, can you talk us a bit about how the VAs have benefited you and what they can offer and bring to the table?
Yeah, I think any form of recruitment, even recruiting physical staff, if you don't do it in a really specific way, you can end up with the wrong people. One of the reasons I went for virtual assistants was because at the time we didn't have any office space, we were working from home. Another reason is that I was looking to maximize my return on investment on the virtual assistants. So I was aware if I had a full-time member of staff or even part-time member of staff that was working for me in the UK on a contract, then as well as salaries, there's things such as, health insurance, various benefits, pensions, all of those things you need to take into consideration. So as the employer, it really ups the amount that you've got to spend out. And I mean, well, I suppose we were still startup when we first hired a VA. We were kind of like 6 months in, and we just didn't have the spare funds to pay all of these additional pieces. And then the third reason that we looked at working with virtual assistants was because I don't know if you've ever found this when you've been working with someone, or maybe you've had someone on your team and they're just not a good fit, but it's too late. Once they're in and they're past that probation period and everyone puts on their best for their probation period, it's a real process to then get rid of that person. And because we weren't sure how the business was going to evolve and how the role was going to evolve, it was very real that it may be that we would work with a virtual assistant for 6 months and then suddenly realize that their skills were no longer where we needed for the business. So we needed to have that flexibility to be able to either develop the virtual assistant, or if we couldn't develop them, be able to replace them. As it happens, we actually developed our main virtual assistant and she's been with us for just under 4 years. So that was why we went virtually. And then obviously we looked at UK and we looked at overseas. We decided to go overseas because it was cost effective, definitely. But we just found that the work ethic of, we hired from the Philippines, of the Filipinos was incredibly good. Where I had my challenges was in the initial part of the recruitment process. So when I was first hiring, I didn't have experience in recruitment, not really. And I was finding that the virtual assistants were not necessarily as skilled or experienced as I'd been led to believe. They weren't that reliable. I found that they were doing jobs for me that I would have done 10 times quicker and 10 times better myself. And also I was really reluctant to hand things over because I was worried that, if I handed something over and they got it wrong, the whole business would come crumbling down. So we had some real challenges. In fact, I had so many challenges with trying to hire overseas VAs that I almost didn't pursue my own business. I got towards the end of my maternity leave and I almost ended up going back and working in my job. And it was only when I sat down and thought, it was kind of, that turning point. And I thought, if I don't get this right, then I am going to go back to a job. And in 3 years, 4 years, I'm going to still have this desire to be an entrepreneur and live life on my terms. So I've really got to try and figure it out. My husband worked in recruitment before, so he sat down and started to work out a system for me, and we systemized hiring. And there's lots of different levels and processes within that system. And we tested it out, and immediately that was when we hired Rena, who was our first real VA. Like I say, she's been with us for 4 years. She's the operations manager of Resource Worldwide. And then very quickly after hiring her, we hired 2 more. The business blew up. My husband left his job and came and worked in the family business. And then I was able to, which wasn't obviously Resource Worldwide at the time, and I was able to reflect about 2.5 years ago on what I really wanted to do. And I really wanted to support other business owners and entrepreneurs who were feeling like they weren't reaching their potential, who kept hitting earning ceilings, who felt like they were missing out on time with their family, and generally who were just frustrated with the situation, knew there was so much more to running their own business and they were so close they just couldn't get there, and support them by literally just putting the right person in their business and really transforming it.
So looking back then, you started a business, had hiring issues for overseas virtual assistants. You identified that gap in the market, and then now you've set up Resource Worldwide, which is different to your original business. Yeah. Is that correct? So you're running both companies, and do they both have virtual assistants in, or did you sort of leave the other business and now you're just running there?
We've actually literally just decided to leave the other business, so we've just shut that one. And the main reason for that is we did end up in the trap. Even with our experience in virtual assistants, that business was a physical products business. And it's not to say we wouldn't run one again, but we'd run one next time with outsourcing at the forefront of our mind. So we kind of set the business up and it became a bricks and mortar business. And it didn't fit in with our lifestyle and our values. So my husband decided that business was going to be shut down, and he's now working as head of marketing in Resource Worldwide, which means it gives us a huge amount of freedom as well. You know, I think I was saying to you before, our oldest son starts school this year, so we're making the most of it, and we're traveling all around the UK, which we'd never done before. So we've got 8 trips booked. We just got back from our first one last week. Before, he would have had to have been in the warehouse, so we wouldn't have been able to do that. So we're both working on this company together now.
Yeah, so like you say, although you've grown to a large scale, you're still having as much time or a lot more time, and being able to spend that time with your children, which I think is increasingly important, isn't it? Especially with all the world's events that are going on in the last 3 years. It puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? Yeah. That's fantastic. So in terms of who you operate with or who you work with, obviously primarily I'm in the property industry. We met through a mutual connection who's in property, so also in e-commerce, so you probably had that link as well through that. Yeah. What industries do you work, or do you work with any industry, or do you have a niche?
We cover all industries. We work a lot with female entrepreneurs, and I guess that's just because my story is relatable to a lot of female entrepreneurs. Although obviously when I spoke to you, you've got a young family as well, and you found the story to be super relatable. But I do find that I speak a lot more to female entrepreneurs. But as far as the industry is concerned, no. I mean, we range from putting virtual assistants into a business, so maybe a smaller business, and kind of they're just starting to bring on some support and some team members. We may look at hiring virtually for the same reasons we did, but we also work with big companies, and we put virtual teams into those companies. So they have a lot of physical staff as well. For example, there's a recruitment company that we work with in the States, and we've put a team in for them. Now, they've got a huge amount of physical staff, but they've got virtual assistants doing work such as screening applicants, such as doing those initial calls, doing that reach out, screening the internet for applications. And then they also have a technical VA team as well, who are on the chatbots across their sites and who also fix any problems with their automations and their systems. So in some cases, it's companies who are looking to outsource because obviously it's more cost effective and also doesn't require office space. So they can have the skilled VAs who are working from home, but doing the same job that a physical member of staff would be doing for about 25% of the cost. And then we have our individuals who are looking for that support, and the VAs who support the individuals, we make sure that they kind of come in with the experience of having worked with people who are looking to push their business, as opposed to just having the skills and experience. We really emphasize that they're long-term partners of those clients so that they can bring value, they can contribute, they can share the vision of the client. And most of our VAs have been with our clients for, over 18 months, and the clients have seen significant growth in their businesses as a result of it.
I think that's extremely important as well. The fact that, like you're saying, they're embedding themselves within this new organisation. They aren't, although they're overseas, they are, like you said, an integral part of the growth of the community. And it's important, like you're giving people opportunity, aren't you, really, to be able to work within companies. And one thing in terms of the skill set, what sort of skill set is out there available? In terms of vocations, are they degree educated? Can you get just people within experience within that industry who have proved themselves before?
Yeah, so we always work with VAs who are degree educated or higher. And the reason for that is because that ensures that their English is to a really high standard, written and spoken. So that's the only reason that we go degree educated specifically. And then we look at the clients. We always do an assessment. We look at the gaps that they have in their business. We talk through how they could outsource and automate. Like I said, one of the big barriers for people is they just don't think anyone else, VA or non-VA, can do the job as well as they can, or they're concerned about skill level or communication, or they're worried because they don't know how to necessarily train somebody else to do what they do. So when we do a consultation call, we go through all of this and we just look at their business and the gaps and how they could create some standard operating procedures, or how they could maximize the ones that they've created. And then we go and we source virtual assistants specifically for those skills. So somebody may need someone to help build sales funnels, for example, and do top of funnel activities. So social media activities, or reach out to podcast hosts, get them on podcasts, or whatever it might be. Now that's quite a specific VA. It's not a cookie cutter one that just goes, right, well, this VA does social media, so they'll post on this platform, this platform, this platform, do this content. Because it's so specific, we will go find 2 top candidates for the clients, and then the client will get the opportunity to choose between them. So we do it kind of in reverse to a lot of other recruitment companies who go, we've got a PA VA that does this, we've got a social media VA that does this. If you need a VA to do a couple of different tasks with a couple of different skills, we'll go and find them.
So you're offering a bespoke, let's say, people sourcing service based on someone's requirements, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're offering the consultative service to the company. So let's say, for example, I would come to you and say, this is my business, this is what I do on a day-to-day. Would you expect people to come to you and say, this is what I want to get rid of, this is what I want to do? Or would you sit down and say, just to put it in perspective, so I work with a number of overseas investors, and in order to, this is just one example, in order to meet their criteria, I'll go through, let's say, I'll scrape Rightmove, have a look at what, certain properties, what condition they're in, then I'll look at what they'll rent for. And if it meets a specific criteria, I'll obviously arrange to view and stuff. I could outsource everything up until I actually have to view. Well, I could even outsource that. There's companies in the UK, you can, like Viewer, for example, they can obviously do that. So would you then say, right, okay, that's fine, but what else would you do in your business that they could probably build into it at the same time, obviously, to get your money's worth? Yeah,
so we look at 2 different things. So we'd look at that, and if you weren't sure, which is fine, we'd give you an exercise, which I'll share with you now, because by the sounds of it, you're going to be having a virtual assistant at the end of this call. So the task is literally spend the next 3 days and just make a note of what you're doing with your time and how you're spending it. So it may be that you're like emails, our updating social media, our for you scraping Rightmove, an hour, whatever the tasks are that you're doing, make a note of it. Next to that, make a note of how many hours it's taking you, or how many minutes it's taking you. And that can be quite surprising, because something you think you're only spending 15 minutes a day doing, you could actually be spending 2 hours a day doing. Then next to that, be honest and just say, could you actually get someone else to do this? Like, don't think about who, just, is this something someone else could do? Like, if you were to disappear, could someone else do this? Or really is the only person on the planet that can do it you? And then on the last column, so I don't know what your hourly rate would be. And this is something,
I'm really expensive.
This is something to really think about, what your hourly rate would be, and write that at the top. So let's say your hourly rate is 250 quid an hour. Could you get someone else and pay them less than 250 quid an hour to do that task? Right. And if you can, then start thinking about, right, well, if I wasn't doing this, so if I got 4 hours free, and what's my goal? And I was listening to Dean Grazioski's Successful Habits of Millionaires. Have you listened to that book?
I haven't, no, but what I'll do is I always like to put books and that people recommend in the show notes. So I'll put it in the show notes, but could you just repeat that a bit slower?
Yeah, Dean Grazioski, and it's Successful Habits of Millionaires. He's awesome. It's very similar to, or it's got similar ideas to Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
But he explains it in a much simpler way. Like, he literally just, I don't know if you've ever heard him talk, everything he does is awesome, but he explains it in a really simple way. And one of the things he talks about is a positive point. So I'll just give you like an analogy. This is slightly different to his analogy, but I'm a skier. I used to be a ski instructor. And I've missed obviously a couple of years because of COVID, and now because of having a 6-month-old. So skiing's in my mind. And have you ever been skiing?
Yeah, I was just about to say I absolutely love it. And I've been a few times, but I want to take my daughter Mila, I wanted to take over to like Austria and put her in the ski schooler. Do you know the like where they all go around in their little tails, in their little lines around the mountains? Oh, is it where you used to in Austria? Yeah, we used to do Stubai Glacier and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I did Zell in Austria.
Oh yeah.
And absolutely loved it. But when you're skiing yourself, you're not looking at the trees and the branches. When you're looking at where you're going to turn, you're looking at the space. So when you're coming down a hill, if you're coming down in a controlled way, then you're looking at the space, right? So you're looking, right, I'm going to turn there, I'm going to turn there. And the goal is I want to get to that point. You're not going, right, well, there's a rock there, there's a branch there. Because if you're looking at those things as you're skiing down the hill, the chances are you're going to hit them. So Dean Graziosi calls this a positive point. He gives a slightly different story to that, but it's a positive point. So you focus on where you're going, you don't focus at the obstacles in the way, and you just go to that point and you hit it, because your brain is designed to solve. So it doesn't look at all of the other things. It just looks at, right, what route do I need to take to get to that point safely? So it's the same in your day-to-day. If your positive points, so we put anchors in 90 days, you know, so we set our goals within 90 days. Yeah. So at the end of 90 days, we've got a positive point where we want to be, a reward of what we're going to get. So our positive point is 7-figure run rate. Our reward is we're going to hire out this incredible house in Devon, like one of the houses that you see in the movies, for 10 days with the boys. And we're going to invite my parents. We're going to do things like charter a boat, just a really, really, really nice top luxury holiday. That's the reward for hitting the positive point. So what I do is any tasks on that list that are not moving me to guarantee I'm going to hit that positive point. So if it's something someone else can do, which means I can use my time better to do more things, generate more leads, do whatever more activities I can do myself, run more webinars, guest on more podcasts, whatever it is, the stuff that only I can do, then that other stuff has to go to someone else, because if it doesn't, I'm not going to hit my positive point. So I really put something important in place, like a short, a close, but ultimate goal, which makes me outsource those other things, because there is discomfort in outsourcing. There is that, and therefore you procrastinate, and then you don't do it, and then you don't hit those goals. When you're like, well, 2 years later, I still haven't really grown the company to where I wanted to grow it. I'm feeling frustrated now. I'm feeling tired. That initial excitement that I had of building a business that was really going to make an impact on the world, serve loads of people, that started to disappear, because you're doing these in the business day to day, and you're not hitting those big goals and visions as an entrepreneur that you've got. And it's simply because you're just not handing over the responsibility to someone else.
Yeah, and I think one great analogy, and I can relate to that, and it is completely separate, but I was thinking when you were saying that about driving, my driving instructor, he always says, look around the bend, or look around where you're going. I don't know if you've ever sort of been daydreaming in the car. I'm a very responsible driver, and you know, you go around the corner, but you sort of like might be looking at something over here. The corner, to take the corner, is so much harder than if you're just following around the bend. And I understand the analogy, that's obviously a different one, but like I said, I'm at that stage now where I'm doing things that I just think I really shouldn't be doing, because it's stopping me and it's becoming a hindrance. And would you say then every business has like a breaking point? Because let's say, for example, you need to understand what tasks you need to do in order to start growing and to start scaling. Or do you think that you can literally get a VA in on day one and say, right, I think this is what you're going to need to do this? Or have you worked, are there people that have worked with startups that can literally probably guide you as well?
Yeah, I think that most people outsource about 6 months later than they should. I definitely think there's some value. I mean, a lot of people also start businesses in areas they already know, right? So like if you were to start an opticians, you're probably an optician, for example. You've probably already got that sort of experience. Or they start a business on the side, so they learn what they need to learn in that business before going full time with it. So it's unlikely you're going to start a business and not know anything about the industry that you're in or the business that you started. So there probably is things straight away that you can look at outsourcing, you know, like social media, for example. You need to do your own content. Like I need to do my own content, and personal branding is massive. That's why all the top entrepreneurs are doing personal branding. If you've got a personal brand, you can launch anything into it, right? If that's going to serve that avatar. So yeah, you need to be the face of your personal brand, but you don't need to then write all the captions, post it, do the hashtag research, do the engagement. You know, you can have a virtual assistant that does that for you. The engagement you might want to do yourself for however long, because you might want to get used to how to interact with people. But if you've then got a page, like so a Sophie Dearden page, for example, your virtual assistant can then do engagement for you as your page. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. It makes complete sense. And I'm just laughing to myself now because I think unless you're actually having a conversation about it, you probably don't realise that you need it. Maybe, obviously, like you say, people come to you 6 months after they should have done. Like for example, and the reason I was laughing is I did a podcast, released one this morning. You know, obviously did the editing, scheduled it, done some video editing, put it on Instagram, posted on Instagram. I'll post on Facebook today, and I just think I don't want to be doing that.
So how many hours of the day is that taking you?
To be fair, like I probably let my social media slip a lot, and the reason being is because I'm focusing on a lot of other stuff. I'm not actually on social media. Sometimes I'll get on Instagram and Facebook, like when I get into bed, or really late. Like once I've put daughter to bed, it's really late, and then by then I don't want to be doing content and branding and all this sort of stuff because I'm just like, God, I just want to sit down and watch, I don't know, Gogglebox or Dragon's Den on a Thursday with The Apprentice, you know.
Yeah, for me, my ultimate goal really as an entrepreneur is to serve people in the highest and best way that I possibly can. So if I'm half-assing my social media at the end of the day because I'm knackered, I'm not fulfilling my objective of being an entrepreneur. You know, like I want to be able to support people with enthusiasm. I want to be able to inspire people with example, and I want to be able to serve people. For me, it's to have, you know, build better businesses and be able to support their family and their goal and reach their potential through outsourcing to virtual assistants. But the passion that I've got right now is because I've been out for a 5K walk this morning with my son. Then I had a really exciting meeting with a marketing agency and Dan, who is just finishing one of our new funnels. And then I'm talking to you, which is awesome. You know, like I love doing podcasts. So again, thank you so much for having me on. And then I've got a couple of consultation calls that I'm doing this afternoon. So like my enthusiasm and excitement's high all of the time because everything I'm doing is really, you know, I have a lot of energy. I get energy from it. I feel like I'm really living my purpose. Whereas if social media is not for me, I don't enjoy it really any time of the day because I'm not great at content. It's not my strength. So when I was having to do it myself, I found it would actually bring my energy down. So you can imagine then the messaging that was going out wasn't the same messaging that goes out now. So now my social media VA does it, and she does it through content that I've created. So she may look at this podcast, for example, and take bits of this and cut bits of this out. So it's still me talking, but it's my VA that's delivering it, and it's not taking any more time because she'll just use what I've already delivered as far as content's concerned.
Yeah, of course. And I must say, what you've given already, you've probably got weeks and weeks of contents in little snips in this because the value you've already given, you know, a lot of information around the VAs, around your business, who you are. There's a lot of stuff that what you've just said in a natural conversation will come across brilliantly to your audience for branding, personal branding. Who is Sophie? So no, it's absolutely fantastic that you know, I see the value. I'm sure a lot of other people do. I'll be speaking to you about VAs myself. So yeah. And like you say, like the energy, and when your energy is high, like you've worked in a sales environment, I've worked in a sales environment, you need to constantly have high energy to perform. And to perform at the best, you need to be able to have them energy levels sustained. And if you are feeling tired and groggy and you've got, you know, really tired voice, then things slump, sales slump, results slump. And it's important, like you say, to keep them energy levels high enough, enabled to ensure that you are performing at the highest level you can.
Well, and then your motivation slumps, and then something happens in the morning, like you might spill your coffee, right? And it goes like on your shirt or whatever. Or, I mean, my classic example is my son, George. So he's 4 and he loves nursery. He's got like his best friends at nursery, but every morning is like a fight to get him to go to nursery.
Oh, exactly the same.
Right. But I always feel so lucky. Like I and my husband, we always talk about this, like the gratitude we have in those mornings, because some of our friends who also send their children to the same nursery, they have to go and work in the city afterwards, right? So they have to get them into nursery at 7:30. Like some of them are waiting for the nursery to open. They've got to get them into nursery at 7:30. And then they've got to get into the city. So if their child is up, I mean, one, they would have to wake them up at like 6:30. George just wakes up when he wakes up. And then they have to get them dressed, get them ready. And then if something happens, like coffee gets spilt, or some, like the morning doesn't quite go right, or the child doesn't want to go to nursery, it's the first thing that happens in their day is a fight.
Yeah.
Like, so that's their first experience. So the day is not set up particularly well because there's that fight. And that's because they have to get somewhere for a certain time. Whereas because of, obviously I'm talking about people like that are working for other people, or maybe even if you work for yourself and you have an office that's far away and you need to be in for 9 a.m. I mean, I would never choose to do that. But if there's that situation, whereas for us, because we've got this freedom and flexibility that's been created from working with our virtual assistants, outsourcing so much, and literally writing a schedule that fits our lifestyle. This morning, I walked George to nursery at like 9:15. He'd had a really relaxed morning with Dan. And then I dropped him off, and then I took Elliot for a 5K walk. And it was just not a stressful morning. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And that comes down to freeing up our time, not just for more tasks that we can do in the business, but for our actual lives to improve as well.
Yeah. And again, I'm laughing because this morning I had a battle. My wife, she was working from home today, so she could have taken our daughter to nursery, but it's on the way through for me. So I fortunately don't actually have to go directly into the city. I'm between here, my house and the city. So it's only a 10-15 minute drive, but I like to be there at a certain time. I'm quite anal with punctuality. So if I set myself a time to be at the office in the morning, I want to be there then. And what happens is, like you say, when you have that fight, they feed off that fight. They feed off knowing that you need to get them ready. And I think it just heightens all senses. It makes things a lot more difficult. But yeah, like on the days that if we don't have anything planned or my wife's off, just the fact that, we just walk her in, and she seems happier, we seem happier, the day goes better. But yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. And like you say, there's so many people, business owners, non-business owners, that go through this daily because of the lack of freedom they have within their own lives.
Yeah, and then you feel really guilty as a parent because you're like, oh my gosh, I just totally lost it with my child. And now they've gone to nursery upset. I'm going to work upset, whatever it might be. And the same thing just with being present. I mean, that leads me on to being present with the children, which is another really important thing for me. And when I first had George, this was one of my massive drivers for getting a virtual assistant. I found that I would be like on my phone, checking emails, responding to customers, doing social media. I mean, it was so bad. When he was about 6 months old, I went for a coffee. This was probably my ultimate turning point. I went for a coffee with my best friend and some other friends and their babies. And it was a Friday afternoon and it was in Q4. And I walked, so anyone that works in e-commerce, which is what our business was, will know like Q4's nuts. It all happens in Q4. And it was my first Q4 as well. So I walked in, I've got George in one arm, my laptop in the other hand. And I handed George over to my best friend, Tash, went and sat at a different table in the coffee shop, opened my laptop and ordered a coffee. And as I ordered the coffee, like I looked up at the waiter to order my coffee and saw George and Tash and Liberty, Tash's daughter, and my other friends and their babies. And I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? And I was so like anxious because I was like, I've got to get these orders sorted because it's Friday afternoon, it's Q4, and otherwise I'm going to get complaints and blah, 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 blah. So I couldn't even enjoy my coffee with George, but I didn't want him to miss out, which is why I'd still taken him there. And I was like, this has to change because I'm just feeling guilty all the time that I'm working in the business. I'm feeling guilty when I'm with George. Like, I don't want him to grow up with me being an absent parent because I'm trying to create this life for us. Like, he doesn't care about me creating this ultimate life. He cares about me being there when all the other moms and babies are there. So it was a real kind of moment where I looked at my life from outside, literally looking in, and I was like, I'm missing from that picture. This can't carry on. This needs to change. And that really pushed me into working with virtual assistants as well.
Fantastic. And like you said, obviously having that pivotal moment has just made you address the situation, and you've gone through it, and you're obviously having that much better one-on-one time. Like I say, you're not absent, are you? You're taking strolls with your children, which is fantastic. I just want to then touch on, so I love the the little sort of task you gave me. Do you advise that a lot of people should go away, listening to this podcast, go away and look at that task? So strip everything back for 3 days, look at what they're doing, how long it's taking, and then, approach you basically, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a starting point. And you know, if you don't want to work with virtual assistants in overseas, then that's fine. I'm happy to have a chat with anyone. I must admit, I don't know when this is going out.
I'll pull it out. So today is the day after International Women's Day. So I think this podcast is actually would have been great if it went out yesterday. To be honest, it would have fitted really well with you know, all the messages that you're conveying. But it will go out next week. So it's week commencing
14th.
Yes, week commencing the 14th.
Yeah, okay. So I am actually, this is one of my my things. I'm actually going to be doing consultation calls only for the next 6 weeks myself. And this is an example. So that's my bit that I just don't hand over. And I guess it's because I love speaking to other entrepreneurs. I get a ton of energy from it. But the reality is it's taken me, you know, I'm doing kind of 8 to 10 hours of consultation calls every Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon. That's only going to increase. So other things, you know, guesting on masterminds, guesting on podcasts, look at starting my own podcasts, potentially writing about all of these other exciting things that I really want to do, but I have found myself not having time to do them. So I need to outsource my calls. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be running a bi-weekly free masterclass where I will be talking through in a lot more detail the areas that we've gone through, but also practically the steps, really, the 3 proven steps to success that took my business from 3K a month to 30K a month in that first 6 months of working with virtual assistants, and how I did that, how I systemized, how I automated, how I hired. So it's literally like every single piece of information. The goal of that, there's no sell on it. We don't sell anything. The goal of that is value, 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 value. And I'm also going to be doing them live. So if anyone does have any questions, then, you know, join those masterclass. If you want to speak to me personally, there'll be an opportunity to have a free consultation call at the end of that, but that will be with one of my team. Or alternatively, if you want to speak to me sooner and you want to talk about how your business could look with a virtual assistant in it, then book a call with him the next 6 weeks. So before the end of April, because I'm not going to be doing those one-on-one calls myself after that. But also I thought, Dan, what would be great as a gift to your audience is if you wouldn't mind sharing. I'd love to give my free ebook, which also breaks through more about the process and how to identify the areas in your business where you could get that additional support. There's a couple of resources in there, like my cheat sheet, which is a cheat sheet version of what we talked about, where you identify what tasks you're doing and the time that it's taking. Also, there's another resource in there of 100 ways a virtual assistant could help in your business, because you may be there thinking, well, I work 8 hours a day every day, or 10 hours or 12 hours or what it might be, but I just can't see how anyone else could do any of these things because I need to do them, or I'm not really sure how a virtual assistant could help me. I've actually listed out the different areas of your business and the different ways within those areas someone could come in and support you. So all of that's within the one resource that I'd love to give to you guys to say thanks for listening, if that's okay with you, Dan.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. I'm sure everyone will be really appreciative of it. I certainly am. I'll be taking that free ebook and having a look through it. And in terms of, do you have a specific link for that I can put in the show notes, or is there a website? Do we go onto your normal website?
There'll be a link for it, and also that will give details of the masterclasses if you decide that you might want to join one of those over the next couple of weeks as well.
Oh, brilliant. So just to clarify, end of April, that's when all your consultations and everything like that will be done by yourself. After that, it'll be outsourced again.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So time is of the essence. So what I'll do is I'll make sure I get this out, like I said, next week. So it just gives people a lot longer to be able to, you know, they might take a week to listen to this podcast, or 2 weeks. They still have that time to then catch up and obviously make contact with yourself. But, you know, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. I've learned a lot. When is that ebook available? Is that available now? Like for me personally to get it? Yeah.
Okay. I'll get that link over to you after we finish the call today.
Yeah, it's smashing. And what I'll do is, like I say, I'll put it out on all the channels, all your information. If anyone wants to speak to you about, obviously, taking on a virtual assistant, how, I suppose the consultation call is just how some people might not see past how they may help. And I think you touched on that point. And it's more about, you could probably guarantee that in a way they'll be able to help save time and money in order for them to focus on the revenue generating tasks where they can actually obviously organically grow. And one of the key points I picked up on then is you grew from 3K a month to 30K a month using a VA.
Yeah, in 6 months.
As Grant Cardone would say, 10x.
Yeah, it is. And
Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, another interesting figure that we worked out, like I say, we're kind of really working on our marketing material at the moment, because our whole business has grown through referrals and entirely organically. And now we're kind of looking at, we've reviewed all of our marketing since Dan's come in. And one of the things that we looked at was what impact we had actually had in supporting other entrepreneurs place virtual assistants in their business. And we worked out that in the last 2 years, we'd placed over 250 virtual assistants in businesses for other entrepreneurs, which had given them a combined increase in revenue of over £1 million per month. So it really has, not just in our business, in our clients' businesses as well, had a significant impact. I mean, I was speaking to one of my mentors yesterday, and he was saying how business, if there's a really high fail rate for businesses, and he'd been looking in some statistics himself, and I need to get all of the exact statistics, and businesses were 40% more likely to succeed if virtual assistants had been brought in. And that's one of the things that I find, because people come to us about 6 months later than they should have, their businesses have hit a critical point. And that's why either their businesses hit a critical point, or their relationships have hit a critical point, or they've hit a critical point where they're literally feeling like they're at burnout. So people come to us a lot of the time when they're not really in a great state. So then we put a virtual assistant into their business. We do a lot of support with them, a lot of support on the integration, because they're trying to explain their business to someone. They're trying to outsource tasks, but they're not in a good place themselves, you know, because they're tired, because they're feeling burnt out, because they're fighting with their partner and feeling guilty about not spending time with their children. They've been working however many hours a day, however many days a week, often haven't had a holiday for a long time, or if they did have a holiday, they were working on the holiday.
Yeah.
So I guess one of my biggest frustrations, one of my biggest messages is, don't be that person that leaves it to that point, because you're not going to give your best. When you're hiring a VA at that point, your VA is not likely to come in and absolutely smash it because you're in a low state. Whereas if you can hire a virtual assistant and forecast, so be like, right, I need a virtual assistant now, I'm going to get them to do this, this, and this. You might not even feel like there's that much for them to do, but get them in now, get them started. Then as your business grows, you can just keep adding the tasks, adding the responsibilities. So that in 6 months down the line, as opposed to being like there, you're going, oh my God, now I need a VA. You've got one, you might have 2 VAs, your business is growing, you've been able to build it in a way that's fun, you're reaching your potential, you're hitting your goals, as opposed to being kind of like, you know, stressed out from the business that's ended up running you at the point when you get to a VA. So try not to let it get to the critical point before looking at outsourcing, just because you'll put yourself through a lot less pain if you do.
Yeah, it's absolutely golden. I think one, you said 40% more likely to succeed, or was it, to revenue increase, wasn't it? And what's, obviously that's in terms of metrics, so your revenue, many KPIs, obviously you've got the, like I said, gross revenue, but service levels, I'm assuming that sort of falls hand in hand as well, doesn't it? Obviously your revenue is increasing probably because you're providing a better service. You as a individual probably, like you say, provide a better service because you're in a better mood, you're being able to perform higher. But in terms of like hours and that, let's say we do 9 to 5 in the UK, do they work the 9 to 5 or do they work outside of them hours? So technically you've got potentially a 24-hour running business.
Yeah, so your virtual assistant will work the hours you want them to work.
Okay.
And that's established at the initial consultation. So when we do the recruitment, it's established what hours they'll be working, because we have clients all over the world. So we have clients, you know, Australia, States, we have clients in Germany, obviously the UK. So that everyone works on different time zones. So the virtual assistants work to the clients, to your time zone that you want them to.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. You know, Sophie, I just want to say, like, listen, thanks for coming on. You've literally sold VAs to me. I'm sure you will do to many other people. I'm really looking forward to actually taking upon on the resources and going through that. And I'm sure many people will. I'll put all your information in the show notes, but just how can people find you? What channel would you prefer people to find you? So you got your website, any social medias?
Yeah, so we are on Instagram. So I've got my personal page on Instagram, which you can put in the show notes. And I always am on that. And anyone that contacts me on that, I respond to those messages myself. And then also we have a Facebook community, which is more specific to female entrepreneurs. So that's female entrepreneurs running kick-ass businesses. So
Love it.
that community I will also share with you. We do have males in that community as well, so please don't feel like you can't come in it if you're not a female entrepreneur, but it is focused more around female entrepreneurs. And then of course through my website, so there'll be a call booking link on there if you do want to book a free consultation and speak to me directly about anything that we talked about. And the goal of that consultation, again, I've worked in sales for years and years and years, and for me, I never try to sell anything. I try to identify whether or not it's a fit. We wouldn't, if we felt a virtual assistant wasn't the right fit for you, we wouldn't put a virtual assistant in your business, because it has to work for the virtual assistant, for us and for you. And that's really important as well. The other reason that we set up Resource Worldwide was because we'd seen so many Filipino VAs who had had terrible experiences with clients in America and in the UK. So, but you know, they hadn't paid them, or they pay them ridiculous rates like $2 or $3 an hour, or they give them projects and expect it to be done in an hour and it takes 10 or whatever it might be. So we'd seen lots of different problems there. So again, we always vet and make sure that the clients we work with are ready to work with the virtual assistants, and we support the clients in how to best work with the virtual assistants to make sure that the virtual assistants are treated really well.
Amazing. I think that sums everything up really well. I'm conscious that I'm eating into your 4 hours.
This is before the 4 hours.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. So, listen, I really appreciate that anyway, taking the time out of your day to come on. I've gained a lot from this. I'm sure a lot of people will. If, like you said, you want to start a podcast, if you wanted this information, this episode, and you need it for your VAs to repurpose, by all means, because that's also pushing me out there as well.
Yeah,
but no,
brilliant.
listen, fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
No worries. You have a fantastic day, and thanks to everyone for listening, and hopefully I'll connect with some of you soon.
Brilliant. See you, Sophie.
Take care. Bye.